This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation.
Guys, welcome back to another week of Mad About You. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing, we appreciate having you with us.
Hey.
Thank God that came.
Wait, there's one more.
Hey.
Guys, this week, that's a little surprise for you. We have Jad's sister joining us on the pod this week.
No one's going to know that was someone else. It sounded exactly like me.
Yeah, two weirdos on the pod and Locke this week. We have Jad's sister joining us. We're doing a little episode on pregnancy this week and Yaz's journey through pregnancy. She's about 36 or 37 weeks, I believe.
6?
Pregnant. So she's very soon to be a mother, and we thought it'd be a nice time to get her in, have a little chat, ask her about her experience and what she's gone through after.
Freak her out a little bit. No.
Yeah, not only watching her sister go through it, but going through it herself, and then dive into asking her some questions, maybe some she might expect, and then maybe some she won't expect. But we thought that would be a nice little thing because it might be the last time that Yaz gets to sort of sit and reflect on the journey to motherhood before she actually becomes a mother in a few weeks. Now, as always, we're ending our episode with our Ask Mum and Dad, which comes from a woman who needs help navigating her new partner's kids. So a bit of a tricky one there. But before we get stuck in, Jad wanted to ask her sister and I a little quick cheeky question.
Yeah, so I actually saw, God, I hate how often I say this, but look, I saw a video. It was on the line.
Holy moly.
It was on the TikTok. And it was a woman basically saying that she'd recounted like the same issue to a friend like 200 times and like they were there for her every time she needed to go back to that person and like basically lean on their shoulder and cry on it. I wanted to know, how many times are you willing to let a friend cry on your shoulder over the same situation? Is there a limit? When do you draw the line in terms of like...
Just ask us one question at a time.
Well, no, just hang on. In terms of like protecting your own peace, or as a friend, is it your duty to always be there for that person for the same situation, basically?
I reckon twice before you got to be like,
Twice!
get it together.
Twice is nuts.
Yeah, but on the third time, you're like, look, we have sat down now for hours talking about this exact situation. Surely you need to start making some changes.
Okay, I love that from you. But, okay, let's say it's twice in the span of 3 years. Is that still...
Yeah,
like,
okay.
the time
there's,
comes
like,
into play,
time
right?
comes into play, I reckon.
Okay.
Then. But I would also be going, hey, didn't you do this 3 years ago? You maybe need to
Really?
make some decisions.
You're that blunt. Like, you just say...
I love that.
Well, I would. I'd say, like, you probably need to start actually doing some things.
That's probably what that person needs.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily agree.
Like, don't get me wrong. I would still be there for them.
Twice.
But, yeah. Twice and then the friendship's over. 2 times is I'd still be there, but I'd be like, come on.
I think
like-
I think once you're having the same conversation with a friend multiple times and they're not doing anything about it, you're watching them suffer as well, continuously
Yeah.
over and over, and you want to help them. So it's genuinely wanting them to do something to make a change. And it is hard to have the same conversations. And I've definitely had a few with mates, whether it's about like dating or even like work, career and progression and stuff. And you'll give them tips, things to, think about, consider, and, they'll blow it off. And then 3 weeks later, you'll be having the same conversation because they're still annoyed. They're still upset. They're still frustrated. And it's like, well, like, no shit, you're still all those emotions and feelings because you haven't done anything about it. So
Yeah,
I'm the same as you.
exactly.
I think once you have it like a couple of times, you have to say like, look, we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
I've told you what you might need to do. And if you don't want to do it, then you cry on another shoulder.
I had a friend who the reason that it sparked my interest is because I had a friend who did this over and over and over to the point where it was really affecting me to see that person.
What was it regarding?
Boys, mostly. Like the same situation, though, over and over and over, like putting themselves in a compromising position, acting like they didn't want anything long term. Really, they did. They were just being dishonest with themselves and the other person, which doesn't help anyone, basically. And then expecting things to just flip out of nowhere and being surprised when it doesn't. Or just going back to someone who's bad for them, right? I feel like this is kind of the reoccurring scenario that most people have issues with around this kind of, how often are you willing to help? And it got to a point where it had been like literally years of the exact same scenario. And it was almost like I'd see them, they'd have the same problem. Because I was there for them, they'd kind of like cry and be upset and like lean on me, and I'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry, that's hard. And then it got to a point where I actually wasn't seeing them, like there'd be months in between. And then the next time I saw them, I'd be like, oh, okay, like I'll reconnect again. I'll give it another chance, the friendship, because like it was just so draining for me. And I'd go back and it would be the same thing again. I'm like, every time I see you, it's like a therapy session, and it's really draining for me because not only are you just like dumping on me, which is making me feel really shit, and basically I'm leaving and going, wow, like that was kind of really crap. I'm going, you actually haven't asked me a single question about me and how I am in my life. You know what I mean? So I felt like there was no room for me to actually have my own opinions and thoughts and feelings with that person.
How long did you let it go for, though?
Yeah.
Too long.
Did you ever like bring up the fact that you've had that discussion? No. Why?
Because a part of me could relate. A part of me had been in a place where I was that person, and I felt like I needed to be that support person because I felt like there was a time where people were sick of me being that person, and I felt bad. I was like, well, I don't want to be the person who isolates you, and I get how hard it is, and I know that you just need to pull yourself out of that at your own pace. Because I had been there before.
But then you actually did end up isolating them because you stopped wanting to see them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? You're right. In turn, like I've actually gone and...
I don't reckon they would have been isolated. Trust me. If they're having that conversation with you, they're probably having it with six other people. Sure. After they leave you, they're leaving breakfast, they're going to lunch with someone else and probably having the exact same conversation.
Yeah, but that's the issue is that it isolates you because people are sick of hearing it, even though you can't stop blabbering about it because it's just so hard for you. Anyway.
So how many times was it then, and then what's your new answer now?
It was like countless. I can't even tell you. It was over the span of years, like over and over and over again. It was the same advice every time. Like, come on, pull your head in. Like, what are we doing? Walk away. They're not good for you. They don't care. Like, look at their actions. And it got to a point where I was like, oh, one ear and out the other.
Did you have new like things to say the next time, or did you just repeat the same stuff?
Kind of more of the same. Because like, what else do you say?
Yeah, so what's your new answer? Like, how many times can someone cry on your shoulder now as opposed to you when you were 22?
I think it's different for every person. For example, you might have a friend who's never been in a position like that before, and you know that it's really out of character, so maybe you'd be willing to be there for them a bit longer than someone else who's kind of just doing it over and over and over again since you've known them. So I think it depends on the person, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that. And when I say twice, I don't mean like I would never talk to them about it again. It would be twice of me just like giving advice.
Yes.
And then on the third time, I'd be like, hey, we've had this chat before.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that's really great because sometimes you do need a friend to just be really straight and honest with you. Yeah. So good for you.
Do you reckon blokes or girls are probably better with this stuff? Like, because I reckon that I can be blunt with my friends. They can be blunt with me, and it doesn't really shift the friendship. There's no like animosity. There's no anger. There's no resentment after the fact. You actually are like, we're almost like appreciative. Like, you know, like recently I had a conversation with my mate where he was telling me about sort of some of his problems, and I started saying like, have you considered this? And, you know, like started giving him advice, and he said to me, look, like, I don't really need your advice. Like, you do this thing where you always try to like solve my problems for me. Like, I'm not looking for you to solve my problems, you know, but and then I said, oh, look, sorry, I am doing that. You're right. You know, but then 10 minutes later, like, the conversation's the same and lads just, you know, we continue on. But I'm wondering if that's the same with girls, if you guys have those conversations, because I feel like, you know, maybe like female relationships are a little bit different in that sense, that they might be taken to heart. There might be a little bit of bitterness and like resentment after the fact, you know, if you have those like real open, raw, like, you know, sort of like pull your head in conversations.
Yeah, I feel like it depends on the person. And like when I'm thinking about this situation, I'm thinking about my friends who all tend to be quite blunt with each other. But I do understand how maybe if you're talking to someone that is more like emotionally inclined.
You're looking at Jadé with
Not
very
the
open
eyebrow
eyes.
raise in my direction.
You got to have a bit more grace, probably.
You do have to be a little bit gentle with Jadé.
I would be offended. I'd be offended. I'd take it to heart. I go, you hate me. You think I'm the worst person and I suck.
But you would need someone to actually be honest with you, because like your other friends might honestly just do what you were doing, which is just keep having the same conversation with you over and over again.
Yeah. It's
But
hard.
that does happen sometimes. Like Jad will come home from seeing a friend or seeing a group of friends or something, and she'll say something to me and I'll go like, oh, did you like chat to them about it? And she'll go, nah. And I'll go, why not? Like,
What are you referring to?
well, I don't want to out like Like if you're like
Whisper
your
it in
friends
my ear.
are if your friends are discussing something and you think like they disagree, and I go like, oh well, like do you question them on things, or and you go like nah, like and I go well, why not, you know, like as in a true friendship, like you're not worried about like ruffling each other's feathers here and there, you know what I mean, like because you're friends, you've been friends for decades and you'll continue to be friends, you know, but sometimes you do have to have harder conversations and ask harder questions.
I think sometimes you just know when to walk away from a conversation as well, though, because you know it might not affect anything, like what you're about to say.
But that's like if you go to me like, Look, why didn't you do the dishes? And I just go, look, I'm going to walk away from this. Like you can't just.
You
That's
would
the
do
easy
that,
way out.
wouldn't you?
That's the easy way out of anything, to go. Yeah, you can walk away from it. Friendships, like they're only going to progress or like continue if you're like, you know, honest with each other. If you just start, you know, not being honest, lying, or not asking questions, then maybe the thing that will happen with your friend, where people don't like something about a friend, and if it continuously happens over time, you as you said, you'll isolate each other, and you sort of continue the friendship. Food for thought.
Yeah, interesting. So the answer to the question, the original question, is how many times?
Yeah, I said 2, and she has to stick to that.
What's your answer, Locke?
3. I'm a bit nicer than Yaz. So.
Wow, you're
No,
very
no, no.
gracious.
No, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, a couple of times you can have it. Like you give them good graces, and then I would be fine to say to my mates, look, we've had this chat heaps of times. You're not doing anything about it. So I don't know what point there is really having this conversation.
I think my answer would be different now to what it was like 7 years ago.
Thought you were about to say 10 minutes ago.
No, but I think my answer is it used to be until the relationship is driven into the floor. And now I think I'd be a bit more honest. I think if it's a really close friend, I'd probably say around like the 3rd time, I'd probably go, hey, look, like we've been here before. What's going on? Is there anything that we can do to like help you move forward from this? Because it's just becoming annoying. And still be supportive as a friend.
Yes.
All right, let's get stuck into chatting a few things with Yaz about pregnancy.
Yaz, we wanted to firstly ask, how are you going truly with your journey with pregnancy so far?
Honestly, pretty good, I'd say. Like, I feel like sometimes I start lying to people and make up that I'm not doing that well. Or like, I'll be
Really?
like, yeah, like I'll be like, oh, like ups and downs, because I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm great.
Yeah, it feels
And then
weird.
sometimes I want to keep it in my back pocket in case I want to use it as like an excuse to get out of something. So I don't want to be like, oh, I feel fantastic, but I don't want to come to dinner tonight.
You've just shown your cards.
I know.
You've just
I've
opened
now
your hand.
told everyone.
Yeah, everyone
but I've only
knows.
got like 4 weeks left, so
If you message me from now on and say, I'm sorry, I can't, I'm going to go, nah, you're lying, I'm coming over. I'm going to know.
yeah, well, yeah, sorry.
Did you experience anything like negative? Like a lot of women suffer with, you know, morning sickness and crazy lethargy and stuff like that. Like obviously Jad didn't really get those, which was a lucky experience. You know, a little bit tired in the afternoons, but I think she just, you know, says that to have a little
Chronic
nap.
fatigue's
But
more than
yeah, like
tired.
you know, I have friends who have suffered like months of morning sickness, which has really rocked them. So
Yeah, mine was that first trimester exhaustion. And like, I have never experienced, like, you can get a day of it here and there, like in your life before you get pregnant, but like day after day, it's so tedious. Like, I was just like, I also didn't like think about that as like a big symptom of pregnancy.
No.
Like everyone was like, oh, you're going to be nauseous, like
Yeah.
you're going to be XYZ. But like, I didn't understand how that fatigue was going to like impact me.
Agree.
But luckily, like I only really had that, I reckon, from like week 6 to like week 12. So
Okay.
maybe like, 6 weeks or so of that like exhaustion. And then I was pretty much like after that felt great. Second trimester was awesome. Like I just felt completely normal. Besides like the kicks, I like wouldn't have really known I was pregnant.
that's nice. At least I think if you have a good experience, then also you probably, after you have the baby, more open and willing to doing it again. Because I know some people have
Yeah.
a shocking experience and then they go like, oh, I don't know if I could do that
For
again.
sure.
You know? So yeah, that's nice that you had a good experience.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. Like people saying like, I cannot be pregnant again. And I'm like, oh, like, thank God. Like
Yeah.
we've had
Very lucky.
pretty good pregnancies for the most part.
Yeah, you count your blessings, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so you're a couple of weeks away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, about 4.
Few. Well, you never know. You could
Well,
pop on the
yeah,
way home.
true.
So
Hey,
it gets
right
to
now.
that
You
time
said
in
baby
pregnancy.
drop.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, becoming a parent is, I would say, quite a scary thing. It's exciting, but it's anxious exciting. So with you, what's the thing that's sort of you're scared most about becoming a parent, or worried about?
Or
not
is there
scared.
anything that
Yeah.
scares you?
Yeah.
I was actually having this chat with Jad the other day where I was like, I'm not super emotional, but I had my
What?
first.
Jad got all the emotions in your family.
Yeah,
Literally in the womb,
She took out every emotion.
I got all
from
the
womb.
emotions and Yaz got all the ass. And I was left with nothing.
Well, you got all the humor as well.
Oh. Sorry, back to the question.
Cue or I was saying that I've had kind of reactions that I would say might be anger based or frustration based, where I'm like, oh, I do not want to have that sort of reaction when I have my baby around.
Sure.
And that, I had a big cry. And it was the only real big cry I've had throughout my entire pregnancy, because I was like, what if I can't get this together in time and I pass this along? And then that was kind of a little bit of a scary moment.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I guess in my head I was thinking the fact that I'm conscious of it at least is better than not being conscious and just
I think you also have to cut yourself maybe a little bit of slack when you become a parent for the first time, as you'll soon realize that it's such a crazy shift, as in one day you're at home, you're doing your thing with your partner, you're relaxing, you're making food, you go for a walk, you can get in the car, go to the beach, go get ice cream, you can do your thing, and then one day you flick your fingers and everything changes and suddenly not. So I think that shift and that transition, you do have to give yourself a little bit of grace, and it's okay to get frustrated at things and be, overwhelmed, because, you're probably going to be dealing with less sleep. You might not be eating as well. All these things, you might be zapped from breastfeeding. So many things zap you that might heighten your experience, which, and when you're feeling those things, it's, hopefully you have a little bit of help around, we're close by, you've got a partner, you've got, in-laws, you've got your mum, so you can always reach out to people. But yeah, I would say that those things are almost inevitable. I can see them happening, but yeah, I would say don't, if they do happen, don't be angry or upset at yourself that they do happen, because it's, I would say it's so normal in
Also,
the first stages.
The fact that you care enough obviously means that you care as a mother already. You know what I mean? You care about how your actions are going to impact your child when the child isn't even here yet. So that's really quite beautiful. And it means that you'll continue to be conscious of that and work on things, that you might be afraid to pass down, as we all are, I'm sure, with generational trauma to your beautiful baby. So Locke's got spot on. Give yourself the grace. We're not going to give her advice for every bloody thing she says as well. God, how annoying.
I liked it.
Okay. I was just imagining this turning into here's what you do. Okay. And then
Okay, enough of what you've said. Now let me tell you exactly how to do it.
no, but he's right in that.
Yeah.
You learn to give yourself grace because you have to. Speaking of me, I wanted to ask, I'm curious, has observing my own journey with pregnancy and motherhood taught you anything you think you wouldn't have been aware of otherwise?
Oh, probably everything. You were my first real experience of seeing pregnancy up close and then newborn period up close. And obviously we're so close that we were talking every day. So there was so many things that I pretty much learned through you.
Was there anything that stood out that was you had no idea about, or anything you learned that you think you just wouldn't have ever known about? You wouldn't have come across it unless you experienced it yourself?
I think you had a bit of a scare a few times in pregnancy.
Sure.
And to me, I was oh no, this is really bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then the fact that you were fine, that was a bit of a shock.
Sure, you didn't know that was possible. Yeah,
I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, I didn't either until it happened to me.
Exactly.
To be honest. So.
Yeah.
There's a little,
I mean, I learnt about like obviously all the foods you had to avoid and stuff like
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing where I was like, I had no idea
Sure.
that was a thing.
yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I get to ask the more fun question, which, you actually have to... You have to give me something here. You can't just skate around this question, okay?
You got to be honest.
Is there anything that you've seen Jad and I do which you've thought to yourself, I will definitely be doing differently?
We won't be offended.
Okay.
Okay, I actually have 3 things.
With like not offending at all.
No one's offended.
I think we are definitely probably gonna sleep train. like when the time comes.
That's fair.
That's so funny.
We will be sleep training.
Yeah. I will be really interested to have this conversation with you after baby comes along.
Yeah, of course. Like,
And to see if you're still on board, totally fine,
Yeah.
obviously. Like, that's everyone's call to make.
and if we do sleep train, you're going to be like, wow, these parents don't care at all.
No,
about
not at
their
all.
child.
Not at all. That's not the perspective at all. I just feel, and sleep training, I think just has this, there's, people are defining it really differently, right?
Yeah.
Like when I do research about sleep training, almost every form of sleep training there's an involvement of letting the baby cry, right? That can be really misinterpreted. And also it's communicated quite vaguely at times because a lot of the time it's up to the discrepancy of the parent, right? It's like you let your baby cry to whatever you feel comfortable. That's some of the methods. It's like it could be, start with 3 minutes and go from there. But we, to be completely honest, tried. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. It just felt like forever. And I think also a lot of babies cry differently. So you might have babies that are like grizzling and whinging in their cot and they're like kind of upset and whatever. Fletcher is bellowing, he's screaming, he's pacing the cot, like running up and down, trying to get bloody out and almost knocking his bloody head on the walls because he's so heightened that we witnessed that and went, this is just not something we can do for much longer, right? Whereas other people's experiences of the same situation, the same method, might be completely different. And they might have a baby who's kind of whinging with their eyes closed, and that's their idea of crying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
sure.
it is really, really different. And we don't pass judgment on people who do sleep train or cry it out or whatever, because it might have worked really well for them. And it does work really well for a lot of people. And that's really great. But we have made our own assessment with our own child and gone, it's just not for us. It's not something we're very good at. We don't want to do it anymore. So there's no judgment whatsoever, and we don't think it's naughty or anything. It's just not right for us, and that's what parenting is really, is like assessing what's right for you and what isn't. But
Hopefully it's right for us if we have another kid.
Would you sleep train if you had another child?
Fletcher,
No,
A different
if you had
the
a
new
new, if you had a
baby.
new kid, would you... She's saying, would you sleep train that one, knowing that this last 11 months has been interesting to say the
I would
least?
do things differently.
What
But
would you do different?
we're really getting
The
into it
interviewee
now.
becomes the interviewer.
Sorry, yeah. When we went and did Fletcher's weight checks and stuff, he was dropping percentiles at one point. So the midwife or nurse we were talking to said it might be that he's not getting enough breast milk. You need to start supplementing because it's not necessarily safe for them to drop too many. So we started supplementing formula. He slept a little bit better around that time. Then there were a few complications around like him being sick and this and that just whacked him out. Teething, waxed them out for weeks. It's a whole situation. But I do remember, Locke, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did start implementing formula, he did sleep better the first few.
Yeah, but
nights.
by sleep better, we mean like slightly longer periods. Like instead of waking up at 40 minutes, he would wake up at an hour 20. Like he'd be able to link 2 little cycles instead. But yeah, I think moving forward, if you have another one, I think that we could definitely set better sleep patterns
Because
for a
we
second
might
one.
know baby might actually not be getting enough milk. That's why they're upset. And then we wouldn't need to do the hands-on settling we've done from day dot with Fletcher, which includes a lot of bouncing, a lot of rocking, a lot of shushing, all the hands-on settling methods that some people haven't needed to do from the outset. And I think that set up bad patterns that are really hard to break later on.
And I think just your confidence as well and your ability, like after you have one and you go through it all, let's say we had another, I would not even worry, because I'd be like, I can smash everything. Like I know how to do anything that comes my way. We can deal with it. Whereas the first one, every single thing that you learn is new. Like every task, every moment, every time something's wrong, like you don't actually know how to navigate it yet. You don't know how to fix it. You don't know what the problem is. So, but then once you've been through it, you kind of have that confidence and, and competence even. So yeah, I think that's kind of reassuring. But yeah, I think definitely the fuller the tummy, the better the sleeper. And ours just didn't really have a full tummy at the start.
Maybe, so not necessarily sleep train, maybe, but maybe we'd just know how to deal with things better earlier. And that would help set up better habits, basically. Enough about us. Our next question is, do you think the internet is a good place to spend your time deep diving into pregnancy-related things?
I feel like the internet actually, like, for some reason, the experience that I'm having is that everything negative about pregnancy is like praised by everyone.
What do you mean by that?
Like if you're having a negative pregnancy, people are much more likely to jump on a post or something and be like, oh my God, you're so right, Queen, slay.
Oh, you're saying the algorithm favors things that are bad.
I just find that when people are having almost like positive experiences, all the comments and social media is people saying, oh, just you wait, or
so true.
Or they say something like, oh, but this will happen, and or you're not prioritizing your baby if you're going to the gym, or something along those lines. And it's really interesting. It's like people like to see people struggle. And they relate to it, and they like almost maybe feeling more competent than that person.
Yeah.
But when there's someone that seems more competent than them, or like is doing better, I find that a lot of the comments aren't really supportive.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really interesting to observe. Like, obviously, like I'm just pregnant and I don't have a baby, but like it's interesting to just like have a look and like see that pattern is happening.
So what's your takeaway from that? Are you personally...
That's why she tells everyone she's having a hard time.
Are you
yeah, because then I want
influx.
people,
Are you blocking everything out? Are you taking it with a grain of salt? Is it scaring you? Like, how is that impacting you?
I feel like I am realistic. Like, I'm not like, oh, like everything's going to be amazing. Like, I know that it's going to be rough and hard, and like there's going to be like shit's gonna hit the fan, of course.
Whereas I was the opposite.
Nah, yeah. I'm like very aware of all of that. However, it's just like interesting to see that almost negativity is like empowered. Whereas like positivity is like almost talked down upon or like looked down upon.
That's a good observation, I think, to not get stuck in it and to just observe it and go, no, yeah, that's interesting, but not necessarily be pulled in.
I will say, like, on social media, if I'm seeing something that isn't like a healthy experience or something, I'm a bit of like a quick scroll.
Good.
Like, I don't want to like take all of that in and start getting anxious about like all the what ifs. Like,
my one piece of advice to you, sorry, I hate to do it, but
like 2 minutes ago, you just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Don't give Yaz advice."
No, I didn't. I said we're going to end up giving her all this advice, but no, I think this is good for listeners to hear as well if they're expecting, is stay away from excessive amount of SIDS content.
yeah.
Because I engaged with a lot of it. Freaked me the fuck out. I thought babies just dropped left, right and centre. Sorry, I hate to say it, but that is how it made me feel. It was honestly, it made me feel nuts. It made me feel like I need to get the owlet sock, which if you don't know what that is, it monitors your baby's heart rate, I'm pretty sure, in their sleep, so that it will alert you if it's going one way or the other.
What did people do for millennia before that sock?
That's
honestly?
what I mean. It's like, also the baby's literally right next to you. But yeah, I just engaged with all this SIDS content and it was being thrown at me, and I felt like it was this thing that happened all the time and these stories were all over my feed, and it really scared me into thinking that something awful was going to happen at any second of the day, and I hate that. So my advice to expectant parents is actually ignore it, because your doctor's going to tell you everything you need to know, your midwife's going to tell you everything you need to know, and you don't need to actually engage with all that other stuff that makes you anxious, because it's not helpful. If you want, do your first aid course, great, that's amazing, you're being prepared. that's it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like obviously safe sleep, like practice that, but just don't engage with the other
Your
stuff.
instinct and intuition will be enough to lead you. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's designed to freak you out, so you keep engaging with it. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry, I'll stop giving advice now.
Trust me, she won't. Okay, now, Matt, about you, typically is we talk a lot of, like relationships and stuff like that. So in your own sort of journey over the last, 7 months, like how have things been with your partner? Have they shifted? Are they different? Or is it, still smooth and smooth sailing for you guys?
No, we've been great. Like he's an amazing partner, and through our pregnancy, he's been like he's a massage therapist as well. So
Stunning.
just like unlimited massages, cooking, getting me like anything I need. Like
You're like, oh, I'm
super
feeling
supportive.
really nauseous.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I need a massage. Like he's been fantastic, but like I am like aware there will be like a shift like after we do have the baby.
I'm interested to know, is there anything from your own childhood you are determined to repeat or avoid?
So repeat, like mum was amazing in terms of how much care and effort she put into us. Like she would do the birthday parties, look after us when we were sick. Like she was at all the assemblies. She took us to everything we wanted to try.
Very present.
Yeah, she was extremely present
Yeah.
and she was also very organised.
She was so sorry.
Yeah.
I think about it now. The house was never messy.
Yeah, and
I'm like, how is that possible as a single mother working full time with 2 kids? I look back and I go, what?
insane. And like all the paperwork was always done. Like everything was always
Lists everywhere.
Yeah, there were lists. We had calendars on like the fridge. I hope that I'm even like a little bit as organised as mum. I'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, there's a lot of other things we probably don't want to pass on to the baby.
Okay, like what?
We as a family, and we like grew up in like a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom type apartment.
We were close.
We were all in each other's space, very tightly knit.
We actually shared a bed at our dad's house until we were 18.
Yeah.
Just for some context.
Which, like, obviously it made us all very close, but also we fought a lot.
Yeah.
And I reckon we fought every day. Like, I don't think there was a day we went
sounds quite
where,
healthy.
like, our family wouldn't have a fight.
It was a lack of boundaries.
Yeah. And it was just because, like,
We
there was
knew
no way.
everything about one another. There was no, and also I feel, let me know if you agree, because we had a friendship with mum, and still do, obviously, it really blurs the lines, doesn't it?
For sure.
Of authority almost.
And like we would have a fight or something, and then mum would suddenly interject and we'd be over our fight.
There would be a new fight would bloom between someone who wasn't even involved to begin with, trying to back up someone else.
Exactly.
And we all just took turns doing that. It was like this big circular thing of arguing. Yeah.
Yeah, look.
We were a vocal household.
And like mum, again, very nurturing, amazing, emotional, but I would like to turn the emotions down a bit.
Okay.
In my like family setting, because they were all very high strung, like very like a lot of intense like heightened emotions,
And that's
24/7.
You're not the kind of person to want to let that out all the time. Like, even if you are feeling something, it's not like you're the kind of person who wants to, like, sometimes you want to deal with it on your own, right?
Yeah, well, like, that's the thing for me. It felt like living in chaos. Like, because, like, I didn't have, like, I would say the tools to deal with that. Like, I just kind of wanted to go find a little space and just be on my own. However, there was
half
no
of the bed.
space. Yeah. There was no space anywhere. We were in such, like, a small
No space.
So is the
apartment.
thing that you actually want to change being in a bigger apartment with your family, or is it the yelling and arguing?
A bit of both, honestly. It'd be a mixture. Like being able to like give my family the grace and space that they need, and also myself.
So, like, better emotional regulation.
yeah,
Sure.
yes, exactly.
And more boundaries?
yes, and that as well, because like yeah.
You guys mentioned being really close with your mum and it being more of like perhaps a friendship than like a mother-daughter relationship, and which is, I'm sure would have been absolutely lovely. But looking back and now, Jad is a mum and you're about to be one, is that sort of the relationship that you guys would strive for with your kids, or is it you would want a little bit different in terms of, like you mentioned, authority before and sort of not having the lines as blurred?
I think I would still like really love a friendship with like my daughter and like my family, like first and foremost. However, there still needs to be that like respect. And I think we did have that. Like, although like obviously the lines were blurred because mum was quite close to us and we'd all like hang out. But like I do think we still had those boundaries that we couldn't cross as like kids, which is like you can't tell your mum to shut up. Like, that's God. Like,
imagine,
like just because we're friends, like they were like, still like strong.
Sorry, even the thought of doing that makes
still
me
today
like sends a shiver down my spine.
So like, I'd love to be like, I don't want my family to feel like they can't come to me and talk to me about everything, because I think that that's kind of what like builds that really strong family dynamic.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I would like to think I'd be slightly more of an authoritarian. Sorry, did I say
author? Just say author.
Author?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to be an author?
Wait,
You're writing a book?
What's the word?
Authoritative?
Authoritarian.
Authoritarian, thank you. I think
Heaps of options.
We'd like to be slightly more of an authoritarian.
Authoritarian.
Authoritarian. Thank you, everyone.
How so?
I just think I would say no to some things that I was allowed to do.
That actually, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but something that you've told me a lot about being a kid, and I'm sure Yaz experienced quite similar, was actually sort of your lack of like maybe discipline around some things, and that you guys could sort of, when it came to being maybe teenagers even, you guys could almost like do kind of what you wanted in some areas of life, like going out, seeing people, maybe sneaking out, being at people's houses you shouldn't be at.
That wasn't approved.
So I'm saying, but I'm saying knowing that your parents had less of an idea of what you're doing, how are you guys going to navigate that? Like, because I'm going to just hazard a guess that both of you wouldn't be okay with your kids acting in a similar way. So how are you gonna sort of navigate that in terms of like, being a little bit maybe perhaps more aware of what your kids are up to?
Well, yeah, firstly that, like, we both know what teenagers get up to, and well, for example, a lot of the trouble I got up to occurred at sleepovers, right? Yeah. So if you're controlling that environment a bit better, hopefully, that's not occurring. I was at sleepovers all the time, and that's where I'd go out and, have a drink or sneak out at night or be somewhere I wasn't supposed to be or whatever, talk to a boy, like...
Yes, I'm saying, how do you navigate that area?
Well, I would probably only allow sleepovers at places where I trust the parents very, very, very well. They're like, we've grown up with them. You know what I mean? Like, we know them inside and out, and I would trust them to be able to pick up the phone and go, can I talk to my son at any point during the night? Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think that where things were a bit different with mum was that she grew up in a very controlled environment. My guess is she didn't want us to be subject to the same feelings that she had, where she felt like she had no control over her childhood and teenagehood whatsoever, and wanted to loosen the reins for us, and maybe a little bit too much at times. You know what I mean? So I just think finding a happy medium there. I want my child to trust me to the point where they can come and tell me absolutely anything. Hey, me and the boys are going to go have a drink in the park. I go, I want to know where you are at all times. So if anything happens, I can come and grab you.
Wait, so he is allowed to have the drink in the park?
I'm just saying, if you're going to go and do the shit that teenagers do, that we all know teenagers do, I want to know where you are. I want to pick you up at the end of the night. I'm going to make sure that you're not fucking, sorry, pardon me. I'm going to make sure that you've not completely lost your marbles. Do you know what I mean? Like, controlling environments like that in that way. I'm not saying that's going to happen entirely. Run it by Locke, see what he thinks. But I mean, like, there's a bit of a push and pull that will be different to, I think, how we experience things.
I think the simplest thing, like to mitigate that, is that my mum used to, no matter whose house I was going to, like, sleepovers, best buds, mum was friends with the parents, whatever, she would still call and make sure that it was okay, so the parents were even aware
Yes,
about it.
always
And then
call.
she would chat to them about it and be like, is it okay? Are the boys going to be doing, this? Are they just going to hang out? Are you guys allowing them to go anywhere? Like, you simply make that call. Can be 2 minutes. You ask a few questions and then you feel a little bit more safe and secure about that. But I totally understand, and there is no way I would let my kid randomly go to someone's house without checking with the parents, probably, as you said, knowing the parents quite well and sort of knowing what they're going to get up to.
And maybe the condition of, like, Find My iPhone exists now, whatever. You can see where your bloody kids are. Maybe the condition is, like, I don't want to be controlling, but, like, if you're at a sleepover, I want you to put your location on.
That's a tricky one because we've said we're not giving
I
you
know,
phones till 16.
but
So that means no
sleepovers are
sleepovers till
tricky.
after 16.
It's either you have your sleepovers and I feel safe, or you don't have them at all.
And then
Apple
you
tag.
run into the risk that they might just leave their phone and then they don't have a phone.
Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. How can I have been so stupid and not thought of that?
They'll just leave their phone and then they don't have like
So
an
real.
emergency.
Okay, look,
like,
there's a lot we need to figure out.
yeah.
All right, so no sleepovers.
So maybe brainstorm this one.
Everyone's sleeping at our house. We'll have a big, nice sleepover room.
Yeah, great. That sounds fun.
Okay, Yazzie, let's end on something positive, which I've always been baffled by and think is amazing, just like the capability of the human body, specifically, females and the ability to grow life. I just think the more you think about it, the crazier it seems. But what's your relationship been like with your body through the journey?
This has probably been, I reckon, the hardest part about being pregnant for me, because which is really interesting because like when I got pregnant, I didn't think like I was like, great, I'm going to look pregnant and it's going to be amazing and I'm going to have a nice little belly and everything's going to be amazing. But the actual like reality of it and the changes that occur has been actually like a lot harder than I was expecting. And I still feel like
Physically or mentally?
yeah, physically and mentally. And I guess as like someone, I think every woman at some point has had some sort of dysmorphia or issues with their body image. But like coming from that place and like readjusting to your new normal and knowing that things might not be the same again. I find myself like looking at like old photos, which is really negative already. It is more difficult, than I was expecting. I still am so grateful and like amazed by like what my body's doing. But like, there'll be moments where like I'll be in an outfit and I'll be like sitting in a chair and then I'll look in a mirror and I'll be like, God, I look like a little mushroom.
And everyone has that. I don't know a single person who hasn't had feelings like that throughout pregnancy because it's so bloody hard.
Yeah.
When you have those dysphoric thoughts, or you're like being a little bit self-critical, like do you have anything that you do to pull yourself out of that space that you get into?
I mean, like thinking of the baby is a big one. Like it's
Like just reminding yourself. what
yeah.
you're
Well,
doing.
And what's its name again?
nope.
Okay, we tried. We tried.
I'm not telling the name, by the way, until she's born.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, do you have any tips or like any go-tos that, help you get out of those negative spaces?
Yeah, I think talking about it is actually good. Like, I think, like, actually just, like, saying something, even though sometimes I'll be like, I'm feeling a bit frumpy and Burhan will be like, let's eat healthier this week. And I'm like, that's not what I meant.
Instead of that, you don't look grumpy, you look beautiful.
Like, we'll go for
what
some
can
walks.
we do about that?
Yeah.
Men.
Like, I'm just like, no, you're just supposed to be
That's-
like, you're pregnant
Yeah.
and you look amazing and everything's great.
Oh, bless him.
But I mean, look, I feel like men are very like practical and like,
Yeah.
like they're like, here's something we can do about
Here's a
it.
solution.
And I'm like, Burhan, that's not gonna like get rid of my pregnant belly. Like doing a bit more activity this week. But yeah, I find like talking about it's always nice, and honestly, just like remembering it's a stage, and like it's not like I'm gonna necessarily be like this forever. Like, but I also don't necessarily
Never-ending pregnancy.
Yeah. Fingers crossed not.
Okay, and one more thing I just wanted to touch on. It's a random one. I know you love trivia and you love facts, but what's the coolest thing that you've found out about pregnancy in your body that it's doing right now or that it will do after you give birth that you had no idea about? Because there were so many that I found out and I was just like, that is so cool that the human body can do that. And I know you love that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I find it crazy that your breast milk, like the baby's saliva sends messages when your body's sick.
Locke love this
It's
one.
When
insane.
when the baby's sick.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then your breast milk creates
The
like,
antibodies.
antibodies.
Yes.
And it literally changes colour. Like you can see it's different. It's so crazy.
That's insane.
Also, I don't know if you know this, but do you know that when you kiss the baby, you're collecting the same information?
Wow.
When you
Yeah.
kiss its skin.
That's amazing.
Right? And it goes down to the boobies and it goes, oh, I don't know, something's wrong. Change the milk.
That's honestly insane. And like I also think it's insane that like your body produces like melatonin at night and
Yeah.
like
Cortisol
in
during
the
the
morning
Yeah, it's
to
so
like wake
cool.
up.
It's really, really
Like
phenomenal.
our bodies are insane. And like what's really weird, like to me, is that our bodies are just doing all of this without any brain power.
Yeah, it's just
like it's just
happening
doing it on its own.
on autopilot.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts, hey?
It is awesome to
It-
think about.
It does settle your mind a little bit when you remember all that and the changes are happening to your body and you think, you know what? Like, of course changes are happening.
Yeah.
When all that's bloody going on, like there's a whole
Yeah.
human growing inside of me.
For sure, yeah. It's
Imagine if
amazing.
you didn't change. That would be weirder.
Well, okay. Imagine.
We are ending our chat with Yazzie and just wanted to say a quick thank you for coming in and sharing and being so open and honest about your journey and what's to come. And Yaz is due in a couple of weeks. So
Stop saying a couple. That's factually incorrect.
I mean, maybe Locke has insider information.
Okay.
Yeah, what's going on?
she's due in a couple plus or minus 1 or 2
It's actually,
weeks.
it's like 100% more of a couple.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, she's due soon, guys, and so this will all become her reality soon enough, and perhaps we can get her in a few months' time, and we can check in on the journey and how things are going, which I'm sure will be an interesting, reflective chat. And while we have Yaz here, we might as well get her involved with our Ask Mum and Dad this week and get her advice on a tricky situation. So here is our Ask Mum and Dad for this week. It says, "So I'm dating a lovely bloke who is 6 years older than me. He's divorced from his ex-wife and they share 3 children, all boys 4, 6 and 8. Having our own children is off the table because he is done with that season of life and the past relationship was really painful for him and the dynamic with children involved. I am 30 and I'm 99% sure I don't want children, so I'm okay with this. However, my reason for not wanting kids comes from not wanting to inflict behaviors that I witnessed in childhood onto children. So this scenario places me in this predicament despite choosing not to have my own kids. My partner thinks that having kids is the biggest mirror to self-improvement. I'm now wondering if my choice to not have kids is actually my avoidance of self-improvement. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this and whether this would impact my ability to fully be in this relationship. How do you move through this fear? Parenting of any kind sounds like a scary reality to face."
That's very, very introspective. That's my first thought. So you take this one.
I think that
That's a bit of a hospital pass.
if you're on the fence about having kids and you're 99% sure you don't want them, and what's stopping you is like not wanting to pass on your traumas, I feel like maybe don't risk it. Like I almost feel
Hot
like,
take.
well,
So sack it off with
because
this
I
bloke.
feel like you need to be 100% sure that you want to have kids.
It's not something you just dive into because it's like, maybe.
Like
Yeah.
the fact that it seems like you're doing it for personal growth and not for the kid in a way. It almost like it doesn't seem like a very. But in saying that, I feel like I'd need to have a bigger chat about this one because
always like that.
it feels like something you need to like hash out in terms of maybe like a
But instead of, I would say, as a bloke, and you're saying that we always give practical solutions. If you have things that you don't want to pass on to future kids, it might be issues, as you said, use the word trauma. Don't you think a better route would be to maybe get help working through those things so they're no longer things, instead of shying away from living life and letting those things hinder your experience? Because like, if you love this dude and that's a part of his life, like, it's going to be a part of yours. And so I think it would be quite a shame to say goodbye or hang up the boots on, like, a love of your life scenario because they have this thing
I'm
attached to
confused.
them.
Sorry, I wanted to ask. I'm confused about her dilemma. Is it that she's saying I might walk away from this guy because he's got kids, or is she saying
Saying that
do
it's
I
gonna-
want my own kids?
No, she's saying that the reason why she doesn't want her own kids is because of, things that went on with her childhood, which she
but
doesn't
then
want
she's
to pass
like,
on to
sounds
kids.
like the door's kind of a little bit open, and she's like, maybe I should.
No, what she's trying to say is that she has those feelings, but then her new partner has kids, so she's going to be forced into the scenario where she could potentially pass on these things to kids that
Okay,
aren't hers.
gotcha.
So she's saying, should I leave the
Yeah,
relationship,
yeah.
or should I, what should I do, pretty much?
Sure.
And so Yaz was saying, like, don't risk it. Like,
Well, I immediately think, well, since they're not your kids, your responsibility is not as
Well,
high.
I interpreted it as
that.
she wanted to have her own kids.
Yeah, to me, it came across like maybe I do want kids because
Yeah.
my partner's saying it's like the best way to improve yourself, I guess, or whatever.
I wasn't interpreting it as she's scared to pass on her stuff to
the other
these
kids, because really that's not your role. Look,
Yeah.
maybe you want to take on a bit of a role, but it's not. At
Well,
the end of the day,
if you're going to be around as one
Yes,
of
of
one of
course.
the carers of a 4, 6, or 8-year-old, which are very, that's a very sponge age for children. It's not like they're 16 and they have their own interests, hobbies, and like they're very reliant on the parental figures. So if they're 3 days a week at this bloke's house and you're going to be at his house 3 days a week, you can't shy away in another room and do your own thing.
Yeah, I
you're
get
going
what
to be
you're
part
saying.
of all these kids' lives. So she's saying,
but maybe you'd step in less because it's like, well, that's not my place because it's not my. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird one.
yeah, I think
it's
but
up
you
to
become
you
a step
and
parent,
it's up-
right? You
well,
don't
sort of,
You
yeah.
don't just become the girlfriend that essentially has nothing to do with them. So it is a tricky one, but I would say the best thing to do in that scenario is probably to work through the things that are giving you those feelings and issues, so that you can be present with this partner and perhaps enjoy something unbelievably special in life, which is like a relationship with children, where you get to sort of be part of the joys of being young again and experience life through their eyes, which is the most transformative, beautiful thing ever, which is a shame that she might miss out on because of a few things that she could potentially work through. That would be my sort of take on it.
Sure. Okay. So,
I think for sure, like, if you don't know if you want kids, but it's based on, like, let's say you not dealing with something adequately to what you think, like, work on that to find out if you want kids first. But it's the 99% not wanting kids that's getting me in this situation.
Sure. Yeah, it's a big thing to say that and then to take on someone else. They're not even your kids, you know what I mean? Like to take on the responsibility of other people's children. If that's what you're saying, like, you don't really have a choice.
You don't.
But yeah, it sounds like to some degree, I think you're both right in that you probably need to figure out why that other thing is preventing you from being engaged in this way to begin with, and see if that's something you can figure out first and then tackle this other issue.
Yeah, you tackle the feelings and then you reevaluate and you come back to the question of,
Might
'cause
bring
you
some more
still,
clarity.
You might still not want your own,
Yeah.
but then you might feel more, confident in being around kids and know, sort of ways of not projecting your issues onto them. But yeah, it would be a shame to have a relationship ruined, not because you don't like kids, but because you don't want to pass on negative things to them. So I think that's a sad thing to see. But
It's also similarly what I said to you at the start of the pod, which is that it shows that you care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a good sign. So clearly you care enough to not want to impact these children in a negative way, which I think shows that you, to some degree, already care enough to be a good step parent,
Exactly.
Right?
Like, I think that the fact that you're aware actually makes you better prepared to be, let's say, a mother figure than having no realization of that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope that helped a little bit.
And if things don't work out and you really stuff up these kids, you can always leave. You know, that's the
Oh,
option as
yeah,
well.
great.
So,
Do that.
obviously, I'm joking, guys. That's not serious. Guys, thank you. We appreciate having you, and thank you. Quick thank you to Yaz for
Thanks,
coming
Yaz.
in. Last few weeks. It was nice to chat, and we look forward to watching your journey from quite close. And having you back in a few months to probably discuss all the things that you either agree with or change your mind on.
I'm going to ask all the same questions and see if your answers are the same.
Just me disheveled, no sleep.
So thank you to Yaz, and then as always, thank you to you guys for tuning in, listening. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, and we look forward to chit-chatting next week.
If you guys want to leave a review, as always, we very much appreciate it. And please also feel free to leave a comment on Spotify because we love reading them. And we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.